So today on Free Field Training, we are going to be shooting Safe Vest. Safe Vest is the lowest cost option currently available for a level 3A vest. They dropped this straight from China, and it is a one-size-fits-all vest. So the plate itself is actually pretty small inside the carrier. You can see it compared with my vest that's set up for me at work. So one that's custom cut to me, and the size difference between this plate, the black one on top, and the yellow one on the bottom. And Safe Vest says it's one size fits all, it's level 3A, and it's no frills. And when they say no frills, they mean it's no frills. There's no elastic on this, there's no mesh lining on the back, there's nothing like that. It's just a front and a back plate on the vest that's extended a little bit to give you a little more coverage to the side. We did an unboxing video over on my Instagram. You can see the live unboxing video where you see where it was drop shipped straight from Shanghai, and the plastic bag with the yellow tape that it was wrapped in when I got it, and all of that. If you guys are interested, I'll probably put some of that footage in here at some point. But today what we're going to do is answer the one question that everybody, of course, had on that unboxing video. Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of options. Yeah, it's not super comfortable. Yeah, it's fairly thick. Yeah, we don't know what it's made out of. And yeah, we can't find any ballistics rating testing on it on their website. Maybe we get them to fix that in the future, where it was sent to a lab. But in the real world, when we put it up against a 1-inch pine board, which is our old simulation of whether or not, the old military standard of whether or not a round would have enough penetrative power to kill you, will it stop bullets in the real world when we test it out here in the field? This is, of course, not a scientific test, but it should give you some idea of how well this would stop rounds. Let's say if you're going to use it, you're going to buy a couple of these and put them in the seats of your cars or the door of your car or something like that. And also, if you're going to wear this vest, what it would feel like to get hit, because this is just 1-inch clear pine board. So you're going to see the dents in it, and if you want to know how much it would hurt, just imagine getting hit with a hammer hard enough to leave that type of dent in a 1-inch pine board. And without further ado, we're going to start off. We've got 9, 40, and 45 here, all from fairly normal duty size pistols. I've got a 9mm high point, an M&P Core crazy style performance pistol that I borrowed from my brother. Thanks, Rob. I've got a 45 ACP from Chris, who we've seen on the channel before. I've got my old Smith & Wesson 686 for 357, and then I've got a box of Honor Day 240 grain XTPs in 44 mag, and my Ruger Red Hawk 5.5-inch barrel that should roughly approximate, as least best I can get, the NIJ standard for this. I don't have a 357 SIG today. I wish I did, so we're going to have the 357 mag kind of slot in there. And then hopefully we can take the vest apart later and take a look at what's inside and how well the round stopped or didn't stop. And then after that, if it stops all of that, no problems, we're going to dump a full mag of 9mm, or at least until rounds start going through from the High Point C9. So it should be fun. Everything except the 357 mag and the 44 mag are all FMJ rounds, just your cheap, off-the-shelf target and range rounds, because those F&J rounds, those seem to do best going through soft armor. So, without further ado, we're going to start off with one round at 9mm. I'm going to run them 9, 40, and 45 across the bottom. We're going to find a spot for 357 and 44 mags. That way we've got a nice big area up top to dump some 9 rounds in and see how well it does with multiple hits all in the same area. So first we got our 9mm High Point C9. Hopefully it behaves today. We got the M&P Core Smith & Wesson Performance Center 2.0 Crazy Trigger in 40. 5-inch barrel, that's what's important. And then we've got the custom edition dual mag release Glock 21 from my friend Chris. All right, let's see how it did with all of that, and then we'll move on to 357 and 44 mag. So we got a 9 here. It actually missed the plate, so we're going to reshoot that. The 40, it stopped, and there's a dent in the board. And the 45 ACP, it stopped, and there's a dent in the board. We're going to reshoot that 9 because of the size of the carrier, it's hard to see where the plate's at. I actually hit it a little low. The trigger on the high point probably doesn't help much. I'm going to shoot a little higher on this and get a good strike on the 9 where it hits the plate. Hopefully that hit it. All right, this one hit the plate, and we left a little dent here on the board. 9, 40, 45. There is a significant dent from 45 ACP, and it's starting to crack through the board here. And the back of the board has some splintering on the back. Little B-roll for all of you later. So now we're going to step on up to 357. These are 158 grain hammerhead loads in 357 out of my Smith 686. And again, our Honor Day 240 grain 44 mag out of a 5.5 inch Ruger Red Hawk. I haven't seen a vest do that before. So let's take a look. So here's our 357 mag, and here's our 44 mag. And there's our 357 mag, there's our 357 mag hit there. And 44 mag, the hit looks there. But the back of the vest is still clean, other than our 9mm hole, which is my fault for hitting too low. So it looks like the cracked, destroyed board is the back face deformation with 44 mag with this vest. So finally, because we've had problems with a bunch of vests before and this issue, we're going to shoot a whole bunch of 9mm all in the same spot and see how long it takes before it starts going through. I guess I'm going to have to hit over here. I'm going to find where the plate is. All right, the plate starts here and ends up here. So it looks like it's going to be just this area of the pocket I'm going to be able to shoot in that's still backed by board, because I don't want it over this big empty spot. We'll give it a shot. No guarantees with the high point. Is that sand popping up in the back? Let's check it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At least no penetrations with 6 of them. We'll keep firing them in there. All right. Let's load that mag up some more. Where's the rest of that 9? In today's price climate, just busting into another box of 9mm is almost scary. Yeah, you spend more on ammo than the vest, that's for sure. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So another 8 rounds. See how long it takes before they start going through. Now we got to start checking. All right, the board's pretty destroyed behind it, but we got a whole bunch of rounds right on top of each other there. I'm going to dump the rest in just to see. Because, you know, after you've loaded the mag, it'd be a shame not to shoot them out of the gun. And I think that's where we're going to call it for the 9mm. That's 2 full mags, and nothing has come through the other side. We've got some serrations and cutting from back face deformation on it. Here, I'm going to get some B-roll for that. We've got a little bit of damage to the carrier in the back where it's split, but I don't see any holes through the back of the carrier, which would be indicative of a round coming through. So, what do we take away from this? It's not a super fully featured vest. It's not. The panels are so small that when you're trying to shoot the vest, sometimes you miss. I'm going to blame the gun, but it's probably mostly me, because I didn't practice with the high point before I came out here today, and I should have. But 940-45 stops it. 44 mag and 357 mag. Significant backface deformation on the 44 mag. Significant backface deformation. I would love to see the lab testing on that, but it did stop it. And then something that a lot of vests, or at least some vests we've seen had problems with before, of the same ilk. The 9mm test, FMJ ball, out of the high point, just dumping rounds all into the same spot. That's all within a couple inches of each other there. And we were not able to get one to go through. So you can see, compared to the size of my finger, you know, this whole group couldn't be more than 2.5 inches across. So, there's going to be links and codes or whatever else ends up coming out of this down in the description. I told them I wanted to shoot it first before we even talk about anything beyond just taking it out, looking at it, and shooting it. Until next week, you guys be safe and take care of each other. So this is the armor here. You can see our invalid strike right there in the corner where I hit with that first 9mm round. Sorry about that. That is definitely not going to hit the plate. In fact, that's on the bottom stitching of the carrier. That's on me. But you can see the difference with this carrier slit all the way up. This is how much excess space there is around the edge. This is not armor. In fact, I'm going to pull this out here to show you guys armor inside. So that's the size of the plate compared to this carrier here. And you can see that there's a significant amount of area that the carrier covers that the plate doesn't. So I'm still going to call that an issue with the gun. I just had a little too much trigger in it to get all the way down. So this is the front face of the carrier. So this is the end that was pointing toward me while I was shooting it. You can see even here the cover for the carrier is larger than the actual armor itself inside of it. And here is the back. And although the back of the cover for the armor seems to be ripped a little bit, I don't see any holes where anything came through, so I think we're pretty good on there being holes. Let's see what fell out here. As you saw when I flipped it over, here are some rounds that fell out. This all looks like a 9mm hardball that hit probably up in this corner here, because probably what's going on is rounds hit and then rounds that hit directly on top of them just kind of sitting on the surface of the vest. So that's kind of cool. So you can see this one's pretty well still in good shape. You could almost reload that back in. You might be able to put that into a black powder and make it go down the barrel again. These are all deformed out. This is what ball ammo looks like when it hits most intermediate barriers. It starts to flex out. It doesn't normally stay like this. This is what happens with ballistic gel if you shoot ball ammo in it. But you shoot at almost anything else when you recover them, they're going to fracture like this. You see the fracturing of the jacket and the lead coming through at the bottom. Pretty cool stuff. So let's cut this apart. So this is just, on the outside, is just a waterproof cover that goes over the armor to make sure water doesn't get inside and to keep it all in place. And then it goes into a carrier which suspends it on your body. So these are two different things, have two different functions. This is the cover. We're going to cut this open here. This cover and the carrier, so this piece and this piece, these have no ballistic value. It's just the stuff that's inside of this cover that has any ballistic value at all. It'd be interesting to take this apart and see how it's designed or how it's built inside, especially given the amount of backface deformation. I was not expecting that with how thick the armor is here. Let's make sure I don't disturb any more rounds. So that's interesting. There's the cover. Empty inside, and yeah, I see areas where the cover cracked but no round holes that would indicate a round coming through. Sorry about any wind noise you hear in the background. It is super windy here in Chicago today. I don't know what this stuff is. This looks like some sort of plexiglass, like a very thin sheet of plexiglass. Not sure if that's showing up on video. If not, I'll put an overlay in. But there's all sorts of pieces of cracked, what looks like plexiglass inside of here. Let's see if I can break a piece. So. And it appears that all of these layers, it's almost like packing tape holding them together. So we're going to cut that so we can start getting into the layers of this. Appears to be some type of ultra-high density polyethylene. If I had to take a guess as to what this is made of. So not all ultra-high density polyethylene is the same. I'm sure we've covered this before if you've seen other armor videos on the channel, but some of it has this plasticized feeling, like what you're seeing here. Let's get a single sheet of this. So this is layer 1. It has this very plasticized feeling, and you can see the polyethylene is interwoven, and it feels like one solid sheet of something, and there aren't like strands coming off the end, big strands coming off the end of it. The issue is polyethylene is just the material that's made of, and how that polyethylene is made has a big effect on how well the armor works. This appears to be a slightly higher quality. It's not like a name brand Dyneema ultra high density polyethylene, but it's also not just rope woven together into a fabric. I'm trying to get some close-up shots of how this looks front and back for you, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Look at the edge of it here. There are little bits of strands coming off the end, but they're very, very small. I don't know if that camera's even picking them up. And that's a huge difference between this and just polyethylene fabric that's woven kind of like blue jeans. All right. So that's the top layers. And then right on the top layer, we've got the lead core of something. I'm not sure where the jacket went of it. I don't think I shot anything in that video that was just a solid lead round, so the jacket must have popped off somewhere in here. Or maybe it's inside and this bounced back out. I've seen handgun rounds, when they hit any intermediate barrier, seem to just be like, after it strikes the surface, it either goes through or doesn't, and everything it does after that, it appears to be magic. So, it's interesting. Layer 1. Layer 2, and in layer 2 here, we've got a round kind of hanging on the fibers. Let's pull that out. This appears to be where I fired all that 9mm in one place. This is interesting to see the back of this and how this material comes apart. Instead of individual strands, they're all kind of connected together, very small strands of polyethylene. Here's a round, another mushroomed out 9mm ball round. It's Very similar to what we see with other armor types out there. So layer 2, that must have been either one of the very early rounds that hit when it was all intact, or maybe a late one that bounced off of something else or struck another bullet that was inside. That's interesting. So, layer 3, we've got a round that's just sitting on the surface here. If I had to take a guess, I would say that this hit here, and then as I took it out of the carrier, probably fell into this spot because there's no hole behind it or in front of it. Another just mushroomed out 9mm round. Interestingly enough, this is a lot the way that rounds look like when they go through houses. When we recover them inside of a house, or when it smashes up against you, find them inside of a car, you get this mushroomed out effect. Now obviously with a house or a car, it's a less regular mushrooming than you see when they hit body armor, because it's a less regular material. But if you hit pieces of 3/4 inch ply, a couple layers of 3/4 inch ply, or put it through drywall and a stud in a house, you find that the ball rounds tend to have this mushrooming effect. There's a couple more, so we are layer 2 through 4 in, and I've got another 9mm round. This one mushroomed out a little less uniformly. You can see there. Let's zoom in a little. A little less uniformly, but still very interesting. We've got another one striking up here. This looks like our 45 ACP. And you can see that there's a significantly more round here. There's significantly more size and weight. You compare this to our flattened out 9mm. I think this at least partially contributes to the belief that many people have that 45 hits a lot harder than 9mm. I think in the real world, once rounds start going through stuff, the fact that a 45 mushrooms out a lot larger than a 9mm might have something to do with that effect. It also has a little bit more inertia to be able to push. As you can see, we've got 9mm rounds. Most of them, or at least a good portion of them, are sitting on the surface of the vest, and this made it several layers in, although, again, tends to be kind of luck of the draw on what handgun rounds do once they hit a solid surface. But it's an interesting point nonetheless. Take from it what you will. Five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Alright, so on the 12th layer, things start getting interesting. We've got lots of fragments and rounds. It looks in the 12, 13, and 14. Scan this over a little bit, zoom you guys in a little more. Got lots of little pieces in here to pull out. All of this, again, is the 9mm that all went in the same spot. So I'm going to yank these little pieces and fragments out. Well, that one's kind of cool. This is really gnarly. This kind of came apart. Here's your fragments of 9mm round. There's probably a little bit of jacket from that initial piece that we had that was all lead. Pretty cool. So 12. Lots of little fragments on here. 13. We've got some rounds on here. See the piece of armor pieces of armor kind of stuck in them. This one's in surprisingly good shape, especially for how far it made it through and into the armor. I think that was 14 or 15, somewhere in there. Let's see what else we've got. So I'm not seeing any holes down here, so I'm assuming 9, 40, and 45 were all stopped within the first 3 or 4 layers, single rounds of them. So when we started packing them on top, that we had situations such as this. And at this point, I don't see any holes. Although I see a lot of plexiglass, that's interesting. I don't see any more holes in this. So within the first dozen or so layers, we've stopped everything. And you can kind of see the outlines of where the major backface deformation was. This might have been 44. Judging by the size of it, although it'd be hard to tell the difference between the two after the effect. I'd have to count lands and grooves in here and compare them. That might be from the Ruger Red Hawk. There's lots of traditional lands and grooves there instead of more of the Glock lands and grooves that I'm used to seeing. So I'm not seeing any holes through all of this material. Now we're going to talk about the back. So there's many, many, many layers in here of ultra high density polyethylene, it looks like. And then on the back here, it appears that our back face deformation is being mitigated by a sheet of plexiglass and some closed cell foam, which I have never seen this before. I've never seen a sheet of plexiglass and closed cell foam being used as a backer for armor to try to mitigate backface deformation. That's interesting. It's also interesting to note that the plexiglass doesn't reach the edges of the armor. It only is covering a portion of it. And I'm sure there's limitations to how much it will hold back, especially since it's a fairly thin piece of plexiglass. It's interesting. I don't even know what to say about this. I've never seen this in armor, but I guess first time for everything. And then the closed cell foam is on the back, and obviously the foam is just going to take a little bit of the impact. It does seem to be fairly impact resistant. I mean, it is closed cell foam, but it's a little thinner than what you would expect for like a camping mat. But that explains why this armor is so thick. So what do we really learn from all of this? Well, I couldn't recommend this as body armor, really. I mean, I guess at the price point, it's not the worst thing you could get in the world. There's very little coverage area, especially since this is the only size this comes in. There's a significant amount of backface deformation. I'd really like to see some actual lab testing on this. Although we do our field testing, that's cool, and we can learn stuff and take it apart and see cool things and give you an idea of what you're getting when you're buying something like this. I really can't... There's no such thing as a calibrated 1-inch pine board. That's kind of the limitations of field testing that we have. I would love to see this get into a lab in a controlled environment with calibrated ballistics clay, where they can put it up against it and shoot it with test samples where they know exactly what the velocity and weight of the rounds are, and get a measurement of exactly how much backface deformation is coming through this when it's shot. But hopefully you learned a little something from this demonstration. If you wanted to use this material for some purpose other than as a bulletproof vest, now you know a little bit more about it and can make a more educated guess as to whether or not this would work if you put it in like the seat backs of your car or your car door or something like that. I know one of my questions I initially had with this is, wow, at the price point that they're talking about with this, which is like $200 for this one-size-fits-all vest with the limited coverage area, even if the backface deformation is pretty bad, if it stops rounds, could I take half of a vest and put it in the top of my car seat and half of my vest and put it in the bottom of the car seat with a little bit of overlap and have like an armored seat, or could I put one of these vests, you know, upside down in either door in my car and have some side coverage in my car from ballistics threats? It's an interesting kind of ghettoized armoring system for a vehicle. I can't advise you on whether or not that would work, or if you could cut this, you know, use half of these sheets, you know, use half a dozen, you know, or 2 dozen of these sheets and another 2 dozen of these sheets and separate them out and use them to kind of stretch vests to do that type of thing. But at least you have a more realistic understanding of what's inside of this and what these look like. I know I've seen these carriers before, and I'm assuming the same vest before, being used by third world militaries. And it's interesting to finally see what's inside of them. You can play with them at trade shows, but it's much more interesting to actually shoot them and get inside of them, see what they do and how they work. I never would have guessed that there would be sheets of plexiglass inside these vests that you see, you know, like the Jamaican police using and stuff, which is, I think, where I last saw this. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any comments or questions or any of that. I'll see if I can answer them, given what I have in front of me. Or if you work for one of these third world militaries, you're watching this, or, you know, a very podunk police department that's issuing this type of stuff out, and you have other experiences with these, or you take them apart and there's different armor inside, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Until next week, you guys be safe. Take care of each other. Hey, thanks for watching Free Field Training on YouTube. And while you're here, why don't you check out some of these other goofy videos that I've made? Or you could subscribe, or maybe go over to Patreon and see how you get your name put on the videos, like these fine folks over here. All the links are, of course, down in the description. We'll see you guys next time.